Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are going to be digging into an alternative to one of the most popular ways to build websites on the web today, and that is React.js. We're going to be looking into Preact, which started as a just lightweight port of React, but it's grown into a whole lot more. And to teach us more about it, we've got one of the core maintainers here, Jovi De Croock. So without any further ado, let's jump right in to the episode. Yobi, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing amazing. And I just realized I didn't check with you before we started. I am pronouncing your name right. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct.
It's like that soul deep panic where you're like, oh my God, I think I might be doing this wrong. So for folks who haven't seen you on the show before, or maybe haven't seen your work elsewhere, can you give us just a quick background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So, hey, I'm Jovi or Jovi, however you like. Funny thing, my mom says it one way and my dad says it the other way, so both actually work. I'm from Belgium, and I maintain Preact, Signals, and I am very active in the GraphQL space as well. You might have seen me on a previous episode about Urkel, the GraphQL client, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for Preact, and yeah.
Well, amazing. So yeah, that episode on Urkel is great. If you are interested in GraphQL, go ahead and jump back in time, find the older episode. You can just search for it on the Code TV site. But let's talk about Preact a little bit. So on its face, Preact is kind of an interesting project because it where a lot of projects, if you look at Vue or Svelte or whatever, are a pretty stark departure from other frameworks that they are being compared to, like React. Preact is it kind of has a different origin story, and it's much more tightly coupled to React. So can you talk a little bit about just a little bit of the high level of what is Preact and why does it exist?
Yeah, so Preact, when I started, was 6 years ago when we released the X release, the 10 release. And what we really pride ourselves in, because like the React drop in replacement is like something that grew out of it, is that Preact is extremely extensible. Marvin, another maintainer, has this really cool blog post about Preact options, the secret sauce about Preact. And actually those option hooks are in the Preact core library, and we use them to create React compatibility, to create hooks, to create signals. So Preact core in and of itself is just like, you can do DOM operations and you can do diffing, and you can sprinkle state in there if you want. So it's kind of like extensibility is our motto.
Okay. Yeah, and so the things that really stand out about Preact is, one of the things that people will kind of ding React for when they look at it as a framework is you're shipping a lot of JavaScript just to get the framework into the browser. There are a lot of things that sort of feel like working around older decisions the framework made to get basic functionality. I think like use effect is a big target of that criticism, where it feels like to work with a third-party library, instead of doing something that feels like JavaScript, it feels very much like you're managing your framework. And so Preact is coming with a pretty interesting offer, which is, as you said, you can do all of the things that you can do in React. You've got a kind of a startling level of compatibility to React, to the point where with the Preact compat, you can just kind of drop it in and most of your React projects will just work, right?
Yeah, we basically have this alias approach where we say, just add this to your Webpack config or whatever config, and this React library will just work. There are, of course, exceptions.
Sure.
I like to say we support 90 to 95% of the ecosystem. But there's things like, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and what I think is really impressive about that is when you look at what you're saying 90 to 95% of the React ecosystem is supported with compatibility mode, and you are shipping what, 3 kilobytes of JavaScript for framework core?
So the core, we rebranded for V11 to 4 kilobytes, just to give
Oh,
ourselves some leeway. But if you add, so the core will be 4 KB minified, compressed. If you add compat, that's another 4 KB extra for like hooks and all of these compatibility things. We'll look at a few in a bit, but yeah, there's a lot of things you need to alias to get around certain things that React does. Like for example, on change in React is actually on input in the browser.
And so when we talk about this, though, that's still what 8 to 9 KB,
Yes. Yeah.
a fully React compatible framework. And by comparison, React and React DOM, when gzipped, according to this benchmark that I just found, is 31.8 kilobytes.
I think nowadays, and I'll quickly use Bundle.js for this. I think nowadays it's like 50.
50. So something somewhere between like 4 to 5 times smaller to use Preact, and you get 90 to 95% of the ecosystem support. And for I imagine that 90 to 95% of the ecosystem support is going to include the big things, like you can use React Router, you can use a lot of the like the things that most projects are going to be reaching for. You know, if you want to pull in core React things, is that a safe assumption?
That's a safe assumption. I guess the exception in that one being Radix has a few components that go pretty deep in React internals, or used to. I haven't checked lately, which we have had a few issues with.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so the thing that's exciting about this is that you are able to more or less use all the knowledge that you have if you've been a React engineer for a long time, but you get this sort of immediate level up of being able to ship less code to the browser. And then the other thing that you get is what you're talking about earlier. You said you're the maintainer of signals. And so a big thing that a lot of folks have been excited about in frameworks, you know, I think the buzz really seemed to pick up with Solid, and then it's and I know it predates Solid as well, but it's sort of kind of picked up in almost every framework except React now has some instance of signals shipped in their framework. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and why everybody's so excited about it?
Yeah, Ryan has done a really good job exciting people. He does really great explanations. So like for those who don't know, with signals, the concept that Ryan Carniato in Solid preaches, you can achieve very fine-grained reactivity. Like you update the signal value and the text node in the browser updates without like having to rerun the component to know the result. Signals in Preact try to take this middle route where you'll have virtual DOM and you'll have some fine-grained updates. Like we can do fine-grained updates on text nodes and DOM attributes, but if you use like a signal in the component closure, we'll fall back to the virtual DOM. So you have this middle ground solution.
Got it. Yeah. So I mean, this is exciting stuff because it's sort of I think the challenge that a lot of folks have is, you know, you don't necessarily want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I know that I'm somebody who has been growing increasingly frustrated with React over the last little bit, because it just sort of feels like they're trying to force me to write code in a way that I didn't want to write code. I picked up React because I like this component-based, browser-based way of writing, and it feels like the framework is sort of pushing me back toward like do it like PHP. We want server components, we want all these things. And I know that there are very valid reasons for that architecture, but I don't have them. Right? I'm not Facebook. I don't have these problems. I'm not Vercel, and I'm not really interested in paying for server compute if I don't need to. So it's been frustrating to sort of get told that the way that I like to build using this framework is incorrect. But I also don't necessarily want to throw out all of my experience with React and all of the things I've learned about how to use it. Because every time I pick up Vue or Svelte or whatever, it's not that I can't use it. I enjoy them a lot. I think they're great, but I don't have the muscle memory, right? I have React muscle memory. I've been writing it for a really long time, and I just know how to do things in React. So I don't want to lose that experience. I still want to be able to move quickly. And Preact is really, really fascinating for that approach. Like, it gives me the ability to keep all this muscle memory that I have, and also not have to like buy into this sort of push toward the server that we're seeing in React. Which that's just kind of me up on my soapbox here.
to play into that, this is not acknowledged by any of the other maintainers, but I've jokingly said that our catchphrase should be "Bring your React 18 knowledge and have a good time." But yeah, that's just me.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, it's and you know, no shade on the people who are trying to build things that they think are important. I think it is important to push the web forward and to build the things that you think are useful. It just diverged from what I think is useful, and so having an option to keep my experience but not have to introduce these concepts that I'm not necessarily in need of has been very good for me. So with that in mind, is there anything else high level that we should talk about regarding Preact before we just dive in and get our hands dirty?
I guess the only big change, which can segue into us going to the docs, is Preact can be done in multiple ways. Like you're not stuck to a bundler. You can go like the ESM route and use our HTM library, well, Jason's HTM library, Jason Miller's, and just not even use JSX. Like we have multiple ways to just build, which I find very fun.
Yeah, and I know you've got the Webpack plugin. Are you, and like if I'm using Vite, I imagine I can use Vite.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like wherever I am, I can bring it the same way as I would with Vue or Svelte or anything else.
Exactly, yeah. But you can even work without a bundler, which
even without a bundler,
which is experimentation.
That is nice that you can like bring it in and ship it in, say like a code pen. That's pretty cool, because a lot of times that does prevent people from being able to like post a little quick experiment. Is that you gotta like ship it. I don't want to necessarily ship it. Sometimes I just want to show somebody something cool. But with that in mind, let's go figure out how we can actually do this ourselves. So I'm gonna share my screen here, make sure it's the right one, and get us into the view that I wanted to be in, which wasn't that one. Was this one. All right. Now let's talk for just a quick second before we get going. This episode, like every episode, is being live captioned. We've got Diane here with us from White Coat Captioning, taking down all these words so that if you need a little assistance understanding what the heck is coming out of my mouth, because I know I'm a mumbler, you can go to lwj.dev/captions. And we are also in hunt for a sponsor. If you or your company want to help make it more accessible to watch Learn with Jason, or just to help Code TV make more stuff, we are always on the hunt for new supporters. Go to codetv.dev/support for more details. With that being said, we're talking to Jovi today. So here is the your portfolio. So we'll throw this here, and you can go check out Jovi's site there. Also follow on Blue Sky. You want any other socials that you want me to share?
Those are the most important. Thank you.
All right. And then we are talking about Preact today. So here is the Preact homepage. And you can see right here at the top, it is a 3K, now 4K for a little wiggle room alternative to React with the same API. And so this is what I love. Nothing about this doesn't feel like React to me, but I'm shipping 20% of the code, which is really, really nice for me. It makes me very happy. And I'm ready to learn about it. So, Jovi, if we want to get started, what's the first thing I should do here?
Well, let's click the Get Started button, and that immediately shows like all of the ways we can start an application. So we'll probably go
here's
with
that
Vite,
no build tool. Here's the Vite. Oh yeah, Webpack node parser. So basically, whatever you're using, it's going to fit.
Exactly, and those are like all the alias approaches for like if you want to, well, if you're coming from React and you want to try to just put us in there, use the alias approach, and you can just trial it. Before we just dig into building, we can look at the differences with React, which is in the left hand if you scroll down a bit.
Differences to React. Okay.
Yes, that's it. So
So
these are like, we have like listed out all of the main differences. We don't have a synthetic event system. So for example, if you use events with a portal, we won't bubble that event through the portal because the portal is a JavaScript concept, not a DOM concept. And then some inputs are different. Like in React, they use onChange to mean on input. OnChange only calls JavaScript when you blur the input, and on input with every keystroke calls it.
got it. And then it looks like there's a couple others. DoubleClick has a
Yeah.
standard spelling and a React spelling, and then on search instead of on input. The other things that I thought were really cool are things like you don't have to use class name; you can use class, and little things like that. That again are just like quality of life sorts of upgrades that just make me a little bit happier as a developer because I feel like I'm closer to the DOM. I know that the synthetic event system was really important 10 years ago, but it seemed the browsers have really standardized and come a long way since then. And so being closer to the DOM, being closer to the standards just makes me as a developer feel more future proof with something. Like I always get nervous when we're sort of maintaining two parallel universes because a change here then has to bubble through here to then get to me. And the bigger the ecosystem is, the longer it takes to bubble. So being right there on the DOM, using the web standard APIs makes me feel a little bit better. Any other major differences you want to touch on before we jump?
No, those are like the things that I find cool as well, like class instead of class name, for instead of HTML4, things like that are quality of life. SVGs just work.
This one, okay. Can I get a little show of hands in the chat if you've been personally victimized by having to go through and edit a freaking SVG so that you can put it into your React code? Like it's just little stuff like this. Like it eats a couple minutes at a time. It's never a big deal, but over time, it just adds up to these little headaches, right? And I know that there are very valid reasons for why you would make those choices. It's just nice that we don't have to do that anymore. I got a couple folks showing up in the chat about this. So let me get back to this getting started. And you said we're probably going to go Vite today.
Yeah, that's the most supported approach, and we have some uniquer things in there. Like Ryan Christian from our team built something called the Vite pre-render plugin, which is a little different kind of static site generation. Rather than it running like the render to string method, it will literally render the pages in Puppeteer, take the HTML snapshot and use those instead, which is
interesting.
A really cool way to pre-render. We'll look at it in a bit. So we can just run npm init preact and we're off to the races.
All right. So I've got a new project here. I've been using pnpm lately. Is that an issue?
I think it's pnpm create preact for pnpm.
Okay, here we go. And we're going to do learn Preact. We'll do TypeScript. Do I want the router?
Yeah, let's add the router.
You want to do the pre-render as well?
Yeah, then we can just show it off because it's pretty cool. You just lint whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I'll keep it. It's always nice to get the warnings when I'm doing something. All right, we're all set. So I'm going to move into this project. I will pnpm dev.
Yep, and then you should be started.
We are running. So let me get over to here.
Now I have to hope that my fixes to the hot reloading worked. I think they did. Yeah.
Excuse me. Right. So we got a home page. We got a 404 page. We've got links to the docs, and I'm ready. Let me open this up in where am I at? Here we go. And so I'm going to open this project. We're going to go into GitHub, and here we go. I'm on a new computer, and so it's going to be exciting today as I figure out how any of this stuff works. Would I like to open the repository? Sure. Never mind.
Yes.
I don't want to do that. We're just gonna skip that part. All right. So I have I've got this project sitting over here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. It seems awfully small.
That looks
And
good.
now we've got where, like, if you want to show a tour of sort of what's happening, where's the right place to look to get familiar with the project?
Yeah, so in the index.tsx, like the HTML file just references that, and we're here. So we have
the
this
index.
routing.
Oh yeah, the index is just what you would expect in a project like this. We've got our reference to the index. We've got our app that we're going to mount into, and then here we go.
So we have this routing library now called Preact ISO. Preact Router got deprecated. Preact ISO is like our way to isomorphically render now, because it supports SSR, data, everything. It's a pretty cool render, because basically, like, conceptually what it does is, like, when you load a second page that's suspenseful, it will use the first page as the loader and then pop the second page in as soon as it's ready, rather than doing the whole loading thing.
So it kind of is this similar to the way that, say, like Astro's doing server deferred or whatever, where it sort of like loads the page with a loading element and then does kind of a fetch call and then just replaces the loading element with the contents of whatever was loaded?
Similar, but all done in like components. But yeah, very similar conceptually.
Gotcha. Cool. So then, if you've ever written React, this is going to look pretty familiar. We've got, providers so that we can do context. We've got our header. We've got a router. This is a pretty familiar router, like, API. And then this, can you talk a little bit about what this is?
Yeah, so basically, because we enabled pre-rendering, it will say if we're in the browser, use hydrate. When there's no elements to hydrate, it just falls back to render anyway. So this is like a safe default for people. They have built and pre-rendered. The HTML file is available. Take the faster route.
Got it. Okay. And then down here, we're pre-rendering so that we do this SSR call to load our app with our data.
Yeah, that will basically happen when you run pm build. Then this part gets triggered.
Got it. Okay, cool. So this is kind of exporting the right function so that the Preact build system has something to hook into. This is us defining our app. And then if we jump around in here a little bit, we've got pages, we've got components. So we'll look at this index page. And again, this looks very familiar. We import our styles just like so. We can import SVGs. This delightful little bit where we're using a class instead of a class name, but otherwise this just looks like every bit of React I've ever written. We've got our components in here.
That's our goal.
Yeah, this is great. Like, this is exactly what I want. We've got multiple components declared in the same file, which is nice to be able to do. You can make that call that you don't necessarily need to split everything out into its own file. I think that's like maybe one of the drawbacks to something like Astro, for example, is like you can't do that. And then when you get into the header, same general idea. We've got our it's use location. Is this coming out of, this is why we needed the provider here. So we've got our location provider.
Yeah.
And then this allows us to use the location context.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the location context is very similar to window.location. We're just re-exporting it and enriching it a bit.
So question, do third-party React libraries generally work with Preact? One of the biggest reasons I'm always hesitant to choose something other than React is how big the ecosystem is. And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. The guesstimate is around 90 to 95%.
Yeah, so generally they should work. There are some component libraries that have components that don't work. They tend to rely on React internals, like, for instance, that event bubbling outside of the portal, or relying on the synthetic event system dispatching the event synchronously. Like, if you rely on DOM bubbling, then every step of the way that it bubbles up a micro tick, is left in between. So it's kind of asynchronous. So you can't predict, like in a deep tree, when it will land.
Got it. So if the short answer is like give it a shot because probably it's going to work, and then if you get into some particularly edge casey components where they're doing something, and honestly, if like a component is reaching for React internals, they're probably getting themselves in trouble anyways, because that seems to be one of those things that just sort of generally causes pain for for companies. But so all that being said, it's likely to work, and I know I've dropped in the Preact compat a few times now on projects, and it tends to just work. Like I don't know if I've ever actually hit an issue with it. It just sort of does the thing, and it feels like magic.
And if it doesn't work, you can yell at me on GitHub and Blue Sky, and I tend to reply very quickly.
Yes, that is another thing that I have really enjoyed about the Preact team, is that you all seem very responsive and like genuinely engaged and interested in people succeeding with the project, which is another potential contrast to the way that it feels like interacting with the React open source community. Another question here is how to configure between SSR, and I'm assuming that's SSG is the file. Oh, yeah, SSG.
Yeah, so this is like a pre-render template. There are other projects like Vike, I think it's pronounced, like Vite but with a K, that is more suited for like the SSR scenario. This is like I want to build like a blog or some static site.
Got
like
it.
this is how my portfolio, for example, is built.
What's it called? Preact Vike, you said?
Oh yeah, Vike. Yeah, sorry.
Vike.dev. Cool.
It's
okay.
like a Vite SSR framework.
Got it. So there's a resource for you if you want to do SSR with Preact. And then otherwise, like if I'm using like, can you drop in Preact as a layer on a framework that otherwise does SSR? Like, can you drop in Preact as like the React core for Next or something?
So
that feels unlikely.
It actually, yes. This has worked until V15 officially, and unofficially it still works. I know there's a community member that maintains this Preact patch thing, and it's absolutely amazing, and I appreciate them tremendously for it, but we don't officially say it anymore. Let me find the link for that. There we go. Oh, I need to go to YouTube chat. There we go.
I'm not.
Is it not coming through? Am I in the wrong chat?
See, you can throw it in the private chat, and I can grab it. Go copy the link address, and we're coming out here. So there's Next Preact. Let me throw a link into the main chat so I can put it up on screen here. And just as a note, if you're in the Code TV Discord, all of these links get shared to a channel about it's called Show Links, that will have a list of everything that we shared today. So if you're interested in that, you can get into the Code TV Discord using this link here. All right, so let's keep rolling. So we got our project set up. We are looking around in here. We've got our pre-render set up. We've got we're using hooks just like we would in React. We've got pretty comfortable feeling API so far. So what should we do first in this code base?
Well, just to say, we also have fast refresh from React. We made our own version so that it just works. So that's what you're dealing with right now. I tried to fix something yesterday, so I hope that actually still works, but I do think it does.
All right, let's find out. So I'm gonna change this headline here.
Yeah.
There we go. We got hot reloading, fast refresh, whatever you want to call it.
Well, we call it pre-fresh, but yeah, that's
I like
just the
it.
nature
I
of the
like it.
beast.
So I mean, but this is great. So we've got all the things that I'm used to. I'm working in Vite. I'm working in like APIs that I'm comfortable with. I get to use the things that I like about the DOM, like regular attribute names. And I don't really feel, so far we haven't departed from anything that I haven't built 100 times before in React, which is feeling good so far. So
maybe
yeah, let's keep rocking.
then we build something that you've built in React before with hooks in Preact, and then when we've done that, we can go to signals, and then I can show a bit like how that feels.
Yeah, let's do it. So is there a specific component that you like to use for this example?
I'm a to-do man, but that's maybe not exciting for people.
I don't really mind, because I think something that we can put together quickly, I think feels good. Gives us more time to explore some of the other pieces. So to do this, we need
like a to-do list component, and we'll create a little to-do component to.
Okay, so to-do list. I'm going to get into naming battles here, but I don't mind. So we're going to do export function to-do list. And then inside of here, we need a look at it help. Okay, so we've got this. And now is this, oh, look at that. We just get right out of
it just knew.
It just knew. And then so for our to-do, yeah, why not? Okay. Apparently my cursor tokens. Okay, I don't know. Do we want all this? This is
the AI overlords are there.
Yeah, is this? Let's see. New to do, set to do.
Looks okay.
Yeah, it looks fine. We can do that. And then down in here, we should be able to do something like. We probably want this to be somewhat semantic, so we can do like a form. And then inside here, got our new to do, and then we've got an on change, but in this case, we would want it to be on input, right?
Exactly, yeah. And we probably want to use current target over target for safety.
Okay, so we'll do
target can be the bubble thing.
Current. There we go, current target.
Exactly.
And we can keep that add to do. Okay.
We also recently added something, Ryan Christian added something really cool, where if you add a property to a DOM element that doesn't exist, like for example, if you do autoplay on the input, it will yell at you. So we now have all the allowed attributes listed for each element.
So if I, yeah. Nice. That's great. That is very great. Okay, so this is pretty basic, but I think it'll let us get where we want to go. And then I'm gonna clean these out to give us more space to operate with. We'll get our to-do list. All right. And out here we've got our to-dos, and so we'll say test the app. Ooh, I broke it.
That just disappeared.
Oh yeah, what did I do?
So I think what's happening is that the form submit is reloading the page. You'll need to prevent default.
Okay. So in that case, we need an on submit, and we will just do an event prevent default, and then theoretically, there we go.
Exactly.
All right, so that gets us closer. And then down here, do you want me to break this out into another component, or like, do you have preferences for how we do this later?
Let's do that, because in the signals thing, that will make our life easier to explain certain concepts. Well, just the list item.
Just the list item.
We just make a function to do. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna build it down here.
Yeah.
We'll do a to do item. We'll do one of these, and then Okay. So we've got same general idea here. We'll be able to add. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So we've got our checkbox. Let's leave this out for a second. We'll come back to this. But what we should be able to get right now is just our list with our checkboxes. Good. Okay. So then in here, when we go to do the on, is it still on input in a checkbox?
I think you can do both because clicking it auto blurs it. But yeah, you can try.
Yeah,
Sure.
This is fine.
You might have noticed that that it already worked when you were toggling it. That's because we don't have real controlled components. Like if they don't cause a render, then we'll just respect the DOM value.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like that. That makes me, that's controlled components in React are one of those things that, like, in very, very few cases I want that. Most of the time I just want the DOM to be the DOM. And so I'm happy to see that like just kind of did what I expected instead of me having to go, oh, right, we're in React, it needs to be controlled, et cetera, et cetera. So then when we've got this, we've got our handle to do. And so this actually starts to give us a challenge because we now need to be able to share the state between these two things. So we're going to need what? Or we'd have to set up context and a provider and be able to kind of use to-dos somewhere and all those sorts of things, right?
Well, I like to keep things simple. I just give it a callback, like.
Oh, you would like do a callback up here.
Yeah, and give it to the to-do item.
So we'll set to-dos, good to completed. Yeah, it seems fine. And then we would pass that into each to-do item.
Exactly.
On toggle or on, wait, is on toggle a thing?
I mean, anything is on your component.
I guess that's true. We're going to go with on input, I think, and we will update our on input to have the ID and yep, that's good. And so then we're going to change this to be on input to do ID and whether or not it's checked. And that should, I think that works.
Let's see. Oh, we might need to do a log because that is like the confusing thing with the not completely controlled thing.
So we'll just log each of these to-dos as they come out, and we get first one's marked as complete, this one's marked as false, etc. We click again, and now
works perfectly.
It's doing exactly what we expected. All right, vibe coding getting us.
I call this winning.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Same. All right. So this is all cool, but you might have noticed that like when we change anything, like everything re-rendered. And a cool thing with signals, which we need to install. So it's at Preact/signals.
Okay. So let me.
It's a cool terminal. Which one is that?
This is Warp.
Really cool.
And it was at Preact/signals.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, but I need to actually install it. npm dev. Yeah, Warp is great. I've been really happy with it because they like each thing is a block. So if you want to like copy the whole block, it like lets you do that instead of having to go back and select and everything. Lots of things to like about it. Maybe should talk about that on another day. Okay,
yeah,
so
I mean,
now we've got
terminal nerd there.
Test the app.
I'll go on a small tangent here to like show why we really like signals. To do that, let's just go to the global scope of your app just to show like one little thing, and then we'll build from it. So yeah, just go outside of all the components, just in a global scope. We create a little signal called, for instance, count.
And do you want this to be in the, like, you want me to put this in the to-do list or?
Oh, just here is good. So
okay,
just so we can show the pool-based values, it's equals signal and then braces, round braces, 0. And then
okay, and that came out of signals.
Yeah, and then we'll make a computed underneath called double, for example.
Double is computed.
Yeah, and inside of that, well, after we import it, inside of that closure, can you add a console log that just says I've been called or whatever?
Okay.
Okay. And then underneath, just add a console log. Well, underneath the computed initialization. Well, yeah, that's also good. Add a and then add count.value, for example. So the thing that I want to show you is that despite us making the computed here, it won't calculate its value until the signal becomes active. So until exactly.
Okay.
So it's like all of these things are lazy. So
if I take these out, then it shouldn't be called at all.
Well, we still have the log. Oh yeah, because we're not accessing double anymore.
Right. So that's pretty slick. It like it's not even attempting to run this despite being called right here because we don't ever access the value. That is really slick. And so then I guess the
yeah,
is exactly. Is it this easy?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. Wow.
And
that's
the
pretty
cool
nice
thing now is that we can add a log to home, and you'll never see that render getting called when the signals are updating.
It calls it once and not again.
So if
this is that kind of stuff that it's just like, I see why people get so excited here.
Yes, it's fun. Like, it works, it's performant, and it's not that different. It's just you have to grasp the concept, and we get there. But
and it doesn't feel substantially different from like how use state works. It's even maybe slightly more intuitive, I guess, because you don't have to call like a set state. You just sort of interact with the value, and you would expect that if I call a function that interacts with the value, that would change. What did I just do? That would change the value. And then, knowing that it's a signal, knowing that whenever this value changes, this computed call gets called again. Definitely some things you got to learn.
Yeah,
but that is really nice.
And just to highlight, like, that we still use VDOM. If you change that home rendering thing to use count.value, so like second argument count.value or whatever, then it will get called and it will re-render. So it's smart enough to know which tracking context it's in. It's like, oh, I'm in a text node, I can do an optimized thing. I'm in an attribute, and then so on.
That's very slick. Okay, so let's apply that to our to-do list here, and let's make this work. So up here we were using use state.
That can be use signal now. So in a component, we have to still use the hook equivalent because we want to memoize the signal so that we don't recreate it on every render.
Got it. And same thing here, use signal.
Yeah, and the return isn't like array destructured. It's just a value.
Like so?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we got that. And then down here, when we want to add a new to-do, we just, it's just to-dos.
It's got it, yeah. to-dos.value equals.
Value equals, and then it's going to be just this without the parentheses. And then new to-do value is going to be empty.
Yep. On line 16 and 17, we'll also need to use .value.
Right.
If you don't want to subscribe to something, we have like an untracked callback, and we have .peak. I try to say in 95% of the cases, you don't need peak. You kind of want to subscribe, and in event handlers, you're not in a tracking context. So whether you're reading .value or not, you're not subscribing to anything.
Okay, and then this is our do. And then does this, let's see, that's mapped properly. Good. Okay, and then I just have one extra.
Yeah, the comma, yeah.
So that gets us there. And now we've got some errors down here because we're setting new to do.
We called it handle add to do. I think cursor did a thing.
Handle add to do. And so down here on input, well, this is just updating the actual new to do value. So we just need to do new to do.
Oh, right. Yeah.
New to do value equals.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I can get rid of this. Okay, and then our last error down here is that we are not mapping over the value, so we'll fix that. And now no more errors, so theoretically speaking, we're ready to rock. Let's test this.
Just works.
And so when we submit, it re-renders, but watch. Before it was re-rendering every time I typed, or like when I and then let's see, when I click, it does it.
But no worries, we'll further optimize this because now we're still calling .value in this to-do list. But we have this helper in Preact signals / utils, which is called for.
Okay.
Like the loop thing, FOR.
And it's just.
Oh, it's a component, a JSX component. Sorry.
Oh, I got you. All right. So, and then I'm going to do that in like here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And cursor is very correct. It's each to-do.value, and then we have like a closure that we can call. So basically, it has a callback.
And that's going to have my to-do.
Exactly.
Right. So I've got my to-do, and I can loop through this.
Not sure. Oh, yeah. So you don't have to call .value in each. It can just be the signal. And then it all just works. And now you'll see that the outer closure, the to-do list itself, doesn't have to re-render anymore because nothing in there is subscribed to the to-dos array signal. Or maybe there is. Oh no,
Look,
that's because
it's just the one.
Yeah, exactly.
So now instead of re-rendering the entire list every time we touch, it's just the one thing that changed.
Yeah.
Very slick.
So that's we can create these really fine-grained trees with these little components and do whatever we like. We can do similar, like we can transfer signals over context, but it's a box. So unless someone accesses .value, you won't re-render.
Oh, nice. So we can do things like I can pass to-dos, and no matter what components get to-dos until I hit to-dos.value, we don't trigger a re-render.
Exactly.
Slick.
So you can create you can have the ergonomics of React context, but you're passing around boxed values.
I like it. I like that a lot. And so this then feels like again, this feels I've seen this approach, this kind of 4 component before. I like it. I like this pattern in React. I use it all the time of kind of passing a callback. And again, nothing here feels particularly wild. I'm honestly, it's kind of a relief to be able to get rid of all the set calls, and you can just say, all right, I'm going to update the value of this thing. And then I know if I'm hitting dot value, I'm about to trigger everything. And the same here. It just feels more JavaScript-y to me and less sort of like a superset of JavaScript.
Yeah, I agree with that. It can sometimes be, like in large applications, be very hard to debug. I've been working on like a debug signals package that helps with that, but yeah, very early still.
Got it. Yeah. All right. Well, so this feels, I feel like we've got ourselves what I would consider to be a nice little to-do list. This feels like it's doing what I want. What else do you want to show off here?
I mean, the last piece for React developers would be like, how do we have side effects? And we have this little thing called use signal effect, which is basically a side effect that will eagerly run compared to the computed, which is lazy, and register its dependencies. And every time a dependency changes, it will rerun, which is very different from use effect, where you have to explicitly say rerun when these things change.
Got it. Okay. So do you have a good ready example for what we should do to show that off?
We could just look at the to-dos array, or
okay,
anything really.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's do this. Let's create a component down here. This is going to be a all done component, and it's going to if every to-do is completed, show a big smiley face. Right?
Yeah.
That's I think a pretty reasonable thing to do. So for us to do that, we need to receive the to-dos, which are going to be our array of to-dos. And then in
our
here,
signal array of to-dos.
Our signal. Yeah, and is that annotated differently?
Yeah, it's capital signal, and then the generic lesser than, bigger than, yeah.
Wait, what am I doing wrong? Oh, there it is. I just hadn't finished typing it. Then I need to grab this out of Preact signals. And now, I kind of already did the thing here.
Well, we can do it with a use signal where it's like const is done. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Is done equals use signal. And that is going to be a Boolean that starts out as false.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we do our use signal effect.
Use signal effect, and that is going to does this work the same way as like use effect in React, where we've got our dependency of arrays at the end?
Well, we don't need them, because every time you access that value, we can automatically consider it a dependency.
Okay. And so this here, is this correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we've got this.
To show off the last component in the utils, we have show. So we can return a JSX component called show here.
Show. Okay,
yeah,
great.
show.
Yeah, let me make that way easier. So we're going to, I'm just gonna show when is done value, and that is going to be our span here.
Yeah, we don't need the dot value. We can just pass in the signal, but that should be all you need. Oh.
Okay, so when we're done, we want to show this thing, and then up here, we're going to use this component and pass in our to-dos.
Exactly.
Okay. So then out here, everything is done, and we'll say test signals. Okay. And there we go.
So that effect now is automatically subscribed to whatever you accessed, and you don't have to worry about, well, dependencies or whatever.
This is that really nice, the ergonomics that I want, right? Like I like that it can just tell this is what's been accessed and this is what's been accessed, as opposed to saying like an ESLint rule that absolutely knows what's been accessed, but then yells at me to fill out an array to tell it what's been accessed. But you already know. You wouldn't be yelling at me if you didn't already know. So this is cool. Like I really like that. Again, it just kind of feels like, all right, if I want to do something whenever something changes, easy. I get it. That's really nice to work with. I like that a lot. So
Yeah,
from here,
sorry.
So from here, this was kind of talking through signals and what this would be equivalently for React developers. Were there other things you wanted to touch on that maybe go beyond?
I think one last thing that I think about currently on a daily basis is disconnecting this whole the whole state model from the view. MobX state tree was very early in that, and I tried to draw inspiration from that, where we can define models and actions and views for that model that automatically get wrapped with computed and actions and so on, that you can just, well, perform actions on that model from the view, but it's disconnected all of a sudden.
Okay. How and so is this something that is like, do I just come in here and create a models folder, or how are you structuring these?
I am currently that's how I think about it. Like,
Okay.
we create like a function that's like create to do.
Okay. And is this a TSX or
no, can just be a TS.
Okay. So then in here we have a function called create to do.
Yep. And it returns like all signals, for example. Like every property can be a signal, so then you can do the really fine-grained stuff.
Okay. Whoa. Calm down. Calm down. So we're going. Jeez. Okay. I would like to be able to press tab without you helping. There we go.
I run into that every day. It's really annoying.
Yeah, I'm really trying. I'm trying to give it the old college try here on using these tools, and there are a lot of things that I love about them, and a lot of things that drive me up a wall. And hijacking all of my buttons is definitely one of them. So in here, we want our to do.
Yeah.
You want each. Sorry, which like.
We have two like streams of thought here. Either every to do is a signal, or you make every leaf of the to do a signal, so that if you update like one property, you do very fine-grained reactivity. Or
so meaning we would have like the text of the to do and the completed status be signals individually.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we have our text, and that would be a signal.
Yeah, lowercase.
Oh, right. Signal.
And the other one is a type.
Oh, yes, you're right. And in this, it would be text.
Yep.
And then completed is signal false, and then we return that. Do I want to generate the ID here?
Well, you can just, well, either take it as an input or just return something random. Okay. But the cool thing here now is that, what is it? Oh, yeah, double declaration.
I have my. This is fine. And then we'll just. Yeah. Okay. But nobody look at that. Everybody.
The cool thing you can do with these models.
Oh, that's it. We'll now we're on our own.
Now you need to get sponsored.
Where are you at, cursor? Okay. Okay. So you were saying the cool things with these models.
Yeah, the cool thing with models is that now you can add like a function to this return array called toggle, for example.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. To like behind completed, you can add const toggle equals a function that just toggles the completed status and return it as part of your object.
Oh, I got it. I got it. So this would be like completed value.
Yeah, completed.value equals null.
Oh, you can't do this. You got to do it this way.
Yeah. That would be awesome DX though.
Okay, so so we've got our completed.value equals the opposite of completed.value, and then I can return toggle. Okay.
And now, like, your state is next to the things you can do with your state, which is pretty fun. Whoa.
Got it. Got it. And then do you want to wrap this up into like a to-do list? Or what's your mental model on something like this?
We can do that because we want the list to be reactive as well, but it's just a list of like a signal of an array. So we can just not do it. We can just use create to do now in to-do list.tsx.
Okay, so we come out here and what we're going to do with our, let's see, here's our to do. So when we handle our add to do, this is going to,
there it is.
This is going to use create to do, and it doesn't have an ID. It does have text.
Just needs text, yeah.
Okay, what are you mad about? Property ID is missing. And
it just wants new to do dot value, not an object.
It does? I think it wants.
Yeah,
no, I think it's telling me. Property ID is
right,
missing.
We're not returning an ID.
Yeah, I think it's mad because it wants an ID. Why don't we just create one? I think that's going to be easier for us. So we'll, yeah. Isn't there like a crypto UUID?
All right.
You know what? I'm not going to stress about it. We're just going to math.random it because I can't remember what that crypto thing is. And I ran out of autocompletes. So in here, our
and now it's complaining about what you said.
Because
what I said.
It still wants an ID. So I guess we're going to have to math.random out here.
Oh, no. So create to do only wants a string. That's the only input we gave it.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Now what are you mad about? Type ID text completed is not assignable
this is
to
because
type
we
to do because we added a toggle.
To do, yeah. These are signals now, the two things above. The text and
this
completed
is a signal. And this is a signal. And the toggle is not. The toggle is returning a Boolean.
Exactly.
Or wait, is it returning at all? Toggle is returning, yes, a Boolean.
Yeah, kind of.
Sort of. Should we just have it not return anything? That seems like a safer move, and then we can explicitly void it here. And now we're not going to like try to rely on that later. Okay, so we get our new value. We're dropping in our to-dos. We have our create to-do value, and then our new to-do value drops back to 0. And then to-do's value down here is broken because we need to do some stuff with it.
Yeah, now we basically, rather than having to remap that whole array, we can just instead look for the item and call .toggle.
Okay, so when we do we even need the handled toggle? It would almost be like down in here.
Yeah,
we drop this entirely.
Exactly.
Okay, so we drop this entirely, we drop this entirely, and then down here on input, no. Yes.
Yep. There you can just do
on
to-do toggle.
To-do dot toggle. And that's a function.
Yeah.
We don't need the event anymore, and we can.
We don't need that
on
type
input.
anymore. Yeah.
Okay, let's format this up. Okay.
We haven't saved the to-do.ts file.
Okay, so that's saved. Oops. Format this as well, just to. Yeah. All right. So theoretically speaking, then this should all work. So we're going to test model. Look at it go. Okay, but we do have one problem, which is that we have now broken our derived state in all done because it's not doing the same thing anymore.
Because now it's looking at to-do.completed, which is a signal. It has to look at to-do.completed.value.
Ah, look at us go.
So like the model thing kind of disconnects all of this logic and allows you to just, in your components, call these actions. I find it very ergonomic personally, and like makes everything reason in isolation.
Well, and what we could also do with this, kind of looking at the model here, is if we did make our list into part of the model, then this logic could live in it, and we could have like the list dot items and list dot all complete or list dot completed or something, where these sorts of things now are bundled up, and in my code itself, I don't need this anymore.
Yeah, it would basically be a computed on the store that contains the list.
So I can see how that would really clean things up, and it would be nice from a. I mean, honestly, what else did you want to show? Because we've got about 15 minutes of coding time left.
Basically, what I have.
Okay, so then let's refactor this then, and let's make this list into let's actually clean this up, because I think it'll be really nice. So if we have our function of create to do list, then this one is not going to have any input because it's just going to return an empty list, but it's going to give us the list, which will be a signal that is one of these, and it's going to have the to do, right?
Yeah.
If I can, what button is, there we go. And then I need to go get my to do out of here, and we will export this from here so that we can still use it. But now it's starting to turn into like a little library inside of our inside of what we're doing here. And then this is going to need the type signal. Okay, so then in here we had, won't need that anymore. We can get our create to do list and also the type of to do, so that things stop yelling at us. And then out here, we've got our create to do list. And then to bring in this this function, we won't quite need it like this, but we can bring this logic in and refactor it.
Yeah, what we can do is we return like an object that has the list and the computed, all done.
Okay, so we'll do a signal.
We don't need to do signal. We can just.
Oh, it doesn't need to be, is it? Yeah.
Computed.
You are absolutely right. So then the completed is going to be a computed that will return.
Yeah, the exact thing.
But it's going to be list this time. Okay, so that's our completed. And then down here, we return our list and completed. Okay, so that's our model. And this is already like this is nice and clean. I like this. This makes me feel good. And then in here, we get rid of this one. And instead, we've got our to-do list, and our to-dos are going to be...
Yeah, we'll basically, instead of the array, have to... Well, if we call to-do list on every render, then it will just keep refreshing.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay.
So we'd have to call that as part of the use signals, either initial value or create globally, because we can just do global state. It will work.
So we can do something like to-dos equals create to-do list.
Yeah.
And then we would drop this in here.
Well, that you can just remove that now.
Oh, right, because we have it.
Yeah.
And so then in
now,
here,
yeah,
we need to change
exactly.
all these to be list, because that's what we're using now. We're accessing our to-do list. And this is our to-do list. And this is actually going to change, so we don't need to do that the same way. And then down here, we've got for each to-dos.list. And finally down here, we are actually going to skip this part entirely. And instead, we can say show when to-dos completed.
Yeah, exactly. That's
okay.
All you need.
All right. And now just to double check our code, clean things up here.
Well, we need to
we don't need this
clean
anymore.
one more thing up, and that's how we add the to-do, because that can be part of our to-do list as well. An action alongside the view.
Oh, good point. Good point. So let's do that. So we'll take this and we'll bring this into our create to-do list, and that's going to be const add. And how do we do this?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh, wait, that's messy. Handle add to do, and then create to do was living up here somewhere. Create to do is already in our model, so we can add to do list value, create to do with new to do value. So we just need to get the
you just have to use the list, which is already in the closure here. Yeah, and get the text. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so then we can do list and then create to do text.
Exactly.
Okay.
You will have to assign list.value and call list.value on there. But yeah, that is entirely correct.
Okay.
We just need to do the assignment.
Oh, right, you're right. You are absolutely right. List.value equals list.value. And then we'll do one of these. And we, to clear that new to do, I don't need to do that anymore, do
I? We still need to do that to reset the input. So we would still probably do that in the callback there, because that's the local state of the component. But now you can just call add.
Do add, and it would be new to do value. And then we've got our new to do value here. So we are really tightening up the way that this works. We don't need to export that create to do anymore, which is pretty slick. And we are in, like, this is pretty tidy. So just kind of walking through this, we create our new to-do list. This is in the global scope, and it's a signal. Then in our component, which is what renders, we keep track of the input value, so what people are actually typing. We have a function to handle a new to-do, which uses the add helper that we created on the to-do list itself. We show a component whether things are all done, and the way that works is it just looks at the to-dos.completed. And again, we don't have to pass that in because it's in the global scope. And then we use the, we have a form input that on click runs our handle to do, which is using our add helper and resetting the local value of new to do. And then down here, we use the for helper to go through our to-do list. And that's where we are keeping the array of to-do items to render these to-do items, which are taking one to-do instance, setting whether or not it's completed, and has a helper function on the to-do item itself to toggle whether or not it's complete. This is clean, really clean. Let's go make sure it works.
The eternal issue.
And now we've got, so each of our items, we're able to check them. And when they're all checked, we get our status that we would expect. Like,
yep.
That's clean. That's really clean.
That's been the top of mind for me. Like having that models approach be something really scalable and easy to give to people. That would be very fun.
Yeah, this is nice looking stuff. Let's see. We got some commentary. Yes, crypto.randomuuid is what I needed. Thank you for looking that up, Nikki. This is more or less how I'm handling state in the Svelte app I'm working on right now. Yeah, this model approach is really nice, kind of thinking around like that. I don't know how would this be different from something like Valtio? Are you familiar with that one? I'm not.
So I am not familiar with Valtio itself, but most of these React libraries, and Signals React does this as well, is when you access a signal, it needs to re-render the whole component. So you lose some of this fine-grained reactivity, or if you don't want to lose it, you have to really work around it to make it work well for you.
Got it. And so we're talking about Valtio, if you want to go dig into what exactly that is. Not familiar with that one myself. Finely tuned reactivity is very important. Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Valtio's use layout effect behind the scene. Got it. Owen is asking, do you know anything about the Preact fork of Remix?
I'll say no.
I also don't know. And every time I've seen somebody try to guess what that Remix team is up to, we're wrong.
Well, they are
can't predict their movements. Okay, cool. So anything else we want to cover? Chat, now's your chance. If you've got questions, throw them in right now. Jovi, is there anything else you wanted to highlight, talk through quickly? We got another 5 or so minutes on the clock.
Nothing currently springs to mind.
Okay. So let's take this as an opportunity then to do a quick recap. So Preact is a almost equivalent API for writing the kind of the React DX that we know and love. It has a compatibility layer, which will cover the vast majority, 90 to 95% of the React ecosystem. It also, if you're not using the compatibility layer, allows you to do things like write regular attribute names, class, for, etc. You can write your SVGs without having to edit all of the property names, like your fill width or stroke width and stuff like that. And it introduces over the top of the React hooks that we all know already, like use effect and use state. It introduces signals, which allow us to use either the React hook style use signal, or you can use signals in a way, let me pull this back up. You can use signals in a way that let you kind of define these models and build out these really tidy state management packages that are, this is not JSX at all. This isn't React or Preact. This is just state management. And then inside of your components, it makes for really, really clean code where you are able to, as long as I'm not dragging things in weird ways, it makes it really easy for you to just kind of interact with your data without having to manage it inside the components, which I think a lot of us are guilty of. I know I definitely am. So
it also plays in nicely with that fine-grained reactivity, like you
really does
alter something where you use it.
Yeah, and to, I guess, recap on that, the way that we've done these signals, we are only seeing, if we go to the console here, let me refresh, we've rendered the homepage, and we've got these bits here. So there's a count, we're computing a value, which is doubled, and that's been called once. And then as we increment these values, we don't see home re-render as we do that. And then down here for our components, we are, as we're manipulating like the on input event in React by default and before we had the signals in place, we were re-rendering this entire component tree every time we had any input. So now, as I say, like test again, we're seeing it's not re-rendering every time. And when I go to add, each one of these is coming in individually. And when I go to change them, it doesn't appear to have to re-render. Wait.
Yeah, because the attributes can be fine-grained reactive.
So the attributes themselves, so I didn't even realize that. We made this even more optimized because now changing the value of the to-do doesn't require us to re-render it at all.
Yep.
That is extremely cool. And then as we go through and do something like hit this derived state up here, this is able to pop in again without re-rendering our components. So this is really powerful stuff, especially when you start talking about performance and getting millions of items up on screen and having these sort of like infinite lists and huge DOM trees that you'll see with social media or dashboards or reporting tools where there's tens or hundreds of thousands of items that need to be displayed in big lists. This is the kind of stuff that makes an enormous difference.
Yeah, like full disclosure, like Vue, Solid, and Svelte take it like a step further even. Like they don't try to call the function closure ever again. We still have that bailout where you go back to virtual DOM, but yeah, and you can optimize this that far as well.
And this is where we as developers have to make these trade-offs, right? Because one of the things that's nice about the React model of re-rendering every time anything changes is that you get this sort of pure mental model. It is a function. When something changes, the entire function is called again, which renders the page again. And in a lot of cases, this is kind of what you want. If you've got a component that's completely derived from data that you're dropping in via props, when those props change, you want the entire component to re-render. You don't necessarily want to lose that every time. So it's nice to be able to have the choice, right? But yeah, I think this is something that it's a good call out that this isn't exclusive to Preact. It's honestly it's like everybody does it except React, which is again you kind of have to look at the ergonomics of things, at what you know, what you're fast with, and then looking at how you can solve these problems in your own projects moving forward. So you got a couple more questions here. Does Preact have something for Vue transitions?
We don't have anything natively. There's an open issue where we've pasted some code and that code is used in various big apps, but we don't have anything that we export to like, here are Vue transitions. No.
Got it. And then would this work for any dropping in of React Native?
I know that there are people who've tried to make Preact native, which was basically just the bridge part. I don't know if I can find the repo fast, but I don't think there's a good working equivalent for that yet.
Yeah, let's see.
I think you're, yeah.
I think you're like better experimental. Off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to venture into uncharted waters, it sounds like there's some places you can start.
We as the Preact team haven't done anything in that area.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think that is a good place to call this one done. So we were able to build quite a bit here. I will get this code committed and pushed up to the Learn with Jason GitHub, so you can find that. We'll drop that link into the description for the show. And we've been talking to Jovi, so let me drop a handful of links for you here. Anything else that people should do if they want to take this further and learn more? Any other resources that you recommend or places they should go to dig deeper?
Get started with Preact. If you run into anything, open a GitHub issue, join our Slack, which is at the top right of the Preact site. We are extremely responsive. We love to talk to people. We love to get feedback. That can be critical feedback. As long as we can improve, that is valuable to us.
Excellent. All right. Well, Jovi, this was amazing. So thank you so much. Let me do another quick shout out to our captioner. We've had Diane with us here all day, making this show more accessible for everybody by adding captions. Those are always available at lwj.dev/captions. We've also got a lot of good stuff coming up on the show. We are going to be doing, let's see, we've got, oh, come on. Don't do this to me now. Here we go. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up. So we're talking about Preact today. This one has been rescheduled. We're not sure when we're going to be able to make it happen, but we do have a replacement coming up. We're going to learn about something called hash brown. It's pretty interesting stuff. And then we're going to be learning about SSH for FTP. You can always go to the Code TV newsletter if you want to make sure that you get all the updates about all the things that we're working on. Let me drop a link in here for that. And just a humble reminder, if you are enjoying this content, you want to see more of it, please do hit the like button, subscribe, share it with your friends, leave a comment, and maybe even bug your boss to sponsor Code TV or become a Code TV supporter yourself. It's about $5 a month, helps us make more of this content, and it really does make my day every time somebody signs up. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Jovi, for spending some time with us today. Any parting words before we call this one all the way done?
Thank you for having me. Thanks to everyone who asked questions. And this was very fun. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, y'all, so much. We will